It like launched itself almost. What's up everybody, I'm Maran and this is the 2021 Mercedes-AMG CLA 35. Huge thanks to Harrison Auto Sales for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. So about the 2021 CLA 35. Well, this is the second generation of these CLAs and they grew a little bit over the first generation. It's on a wheelbase that's a little over an inch longer and you can see the vehicle itself is a little bit bigger than before. And this one especially looks really great in this matte green wrap, which is not a factory option. This is aftermarket, but it really does a great job of showing off the body lines here on the new CLA. And I just really like how, slender it is, and it's really low too. I mean, the nose really comes down low. It actually looks a little bit bigger maybe in pictures, but in reality it's really small and just gives it a really compact but still a very elegant look, so it doesn't feel too stubby like the A35s might look and some of the other competitors. And I even just like you have the little ridges in the hood here and the prominent grille there, and it just looks really nice up front. I also love these 19-inch wheels you have. This one has the night package, which gives you the blacked out accents and stuff, and so great 19-inch wheels hiding those drilled rotors behind it. And then going out to the back there, you'll see you have a nice little bit of a rear diffuser there around those exhaust tips, and again, the way they kind of smoothed out the back end there and made it a little more flowing than the boxier looks of its competitors, I think just gives it a really distinctive and a really nice look overall. And so I think it's did a great job here with the styling on the new CLA. And I think for the AMG version here, they made it a little more aggressive as well, and so I think overall it just looks appropriate for the performance it has and just has a really nice look overall. And hopping inside the CLA here, it's a pretty nice place to be. It's a really cool looking interior. I'll talk more about this interior later in the video, but first let's start up and go for a drive. The CLA has this nice Mercedes key that I like how on the AMGs here it's got a gloss finish, a little different than the regular Mercedes key. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, push button start. The keyless proximity key thing is an option, but the push button start is standard. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the CLA 35. So the first thing you notice, I think, driving this vehicle is you have really good visibility. So even though, you're sitting pretty low, you still have, a dashboard that's pretty low and everything. So it just gives you a really good view forward. View out of the back is actually better than you might be expecting as well. It's a pretty nice large rear window there, pretty easy to see out of. And of course you have backup cameras and stuff to help you as well. And other things here, so we're on just this park road here, which is a little bit bumpy. But one thing you'll notice pretty early on is that these are fairly stiff with their ride. It's certainly not, super comfy or soft or anything like that. Of course, the AMGs do have a sport tuned suspension, so that's going to give you some extra edge there. But even I did a quick drive video in a regular A-Class a few years back, and that also, you can certainly feel the bumps a little bit in that as well. So I mean, it's pretty much appropriate for this segment. It is maybe a little stiffer than I'd say an S3 or something like that. This one also does not have the adaptive suspension. You can get a dynamic ride control suspension from Mercedes. It has 3 different modes. This one doesn't have that option, so I'm not able to test that out here. So this is just the standard suspension setup, and I mean, it's totally fine though for the type of vehicle this is. Again, being sportier and whatnot, so far it hasn't been beating me up too bad, and I'll certainly talk about that more, once I'm driving a little bit longer. But other things here, so we're in comfort mode, and so it's nice and relaxed. It does raise the idle though whenever you're on the Sport Plus mode, so that'll be fun to try out in a minute. But the dual clutch is pretty smooth. It certainly is an improvement over the previous generation dual clutch where you could really feel it engaging every single time. Now this vehicle only has less than 5,000 miles on it, so it's still pretty fresh and all that, but I just noticed that it's really smooth, well calibrated. Every once in a while you can feel it whenever you're reversing. You can definitely feel it when it's going in and out a little bit, but it's not too bad. And like starting off from a stop there, I mean, I didn't even feel the engagement point. It just went, and it felt honestly as direct as a regular automatic transmission. So I think they did a much better job on this. And I remember way back when, of my old CLA 45 review for the previous generation, it was a long time ago, but that I certainly remember, feeling that dual clutch a lot more. So glad to see they've improved it here for this new generation. But I'm going to go ahead and put it up into the Sport Plus mode, which does raise the idle there a little bit, and I'm going to leave it in the automatic mode for now. I will try out the manual mode in a minute. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go, starting in second. Now that went down to first. Man, feels really good. I like it kind of snaps into gear, so you feel those gear changes a little bit. Sounds good too. good amount of punch though from this little thing. So it's a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, does 302 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque, and it'll get this thing moving to a 4.6 seconds 0 to 60, which is impressive. You know, I mean, very, very quick, and it's partially thanks to this all-wheel drive system. It has the 4MATIC all-wheel drive as standard here on the CLA 35s, and that combined with a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, it all just feels very responsive. And I really love the growly sound of this engine, which certainly sounds a little louder here in the Sport Plus mode. I believe it has an active exhaust that opens up. Oh, got some crackles and pops there. Yeah, I like it. It's more crackles and pops than the S3 had. The S3 would only do it in manual mode and only at the right RPM. This seems to be a little more crackle happy, which is great. And I don't know, it just feels really good too. I love the steering is super direct and actually feels pretty quick. And so because the ride is a little bit on the stiffer side, you feel a little more connected, I think, to the road and the driving experience because you're really feeling a lot more than you might in some of the others. Now we got a tight corner coming up here and see how the handling is. All right, yeah, this thing really dives into corners. It was actually doing more steering than I needed it to do, and it just feels so tossable. It's so flat as well, and I really love the way this thing goes around corners. It feels nice and light too. These only weigh about 3,500 pounds. I think it's 3,505 to be exact. So nice and light, and that combined with, again, this quick, sharp steering and just the nice firm ride, it just feels really good. You also have great grip here. You have 245 wide Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires on it, so lots and lots of grip. 245 is nice and wide for this segment of vehicle as well. And so as far as that goes, it is again very, very stout. And so honestly, I think it feels, at least so far, like it has more handling than power. And I think that's why obviously there's more headroom there with these CLA 45s. You can get with 382 horsepower on those, and even more lunacy than what you have here with this. But this is a really nice balance. It just feels very well rounded. And I'm going to try out an acceleration in manual mode here and see how that does. It like launched itself almost. Okay, we're going to have to try that out some more here. We're caught up to traffic, but yeah, it's really pretty quick. So it wasn't, immediate with the downshift there, but pretty quick, honestly, for the downshift. And upshifts are a little slow because I was off throttle, but if we go on throttle, yeah, really nice and snappy. It's great that you have the dual clutch here because it definitely makes this feel nice and quick. That downshift was a little quicker, and I love the crackles. I gotta say, I'm definitely enjoying this experience more than the S3 from my initial impression here so far. And let's do another manual acceleration. Yeah, it like pulls so hard. Oh man. Yeah, I love doing the manual shifting in this thing. It's really satisfying, and a lot of times you can't say that. Even some of the stuff in this segment. I mean, the S3 is really good as well, but this, I love how snappy it is, and I like that you can feel it a little bit more. It just makes it more emotional, more exciting. But going around these other corners, you have a front bias all-wheel drive system, but it really does a good job of really, pulling you into the corner there and just, feeling very tight and eager. Love those upshifts. Really tight corner here. Let's see what we can do. Wow, okay, it almost wanted to play with the back end there a little bit. It kind of was assisting me there and really pushing me through the corner. Man, this thing is great. I love the handling. I don't know, I'm just really more impressed than I was expecting to be. It feels so good, and definitely feels a little lighter, I think, than the S3 as well. And I also love how with this boost display you have here on the gauge cluster, it doesn't show you PSI, it just shows you minimum and max, and you just see this bar just shooting across whenever you punch it, and it goes to max like immediately, which probably isn't accurate, but it just gives you this fun experience. And even if it is playing it up a little bit much for some people, I think to me it just makes this feel so fun. And I don't know, it just feels like a vehicle where they really try to, just maximize everything as far as the fun factor in this car. I think they did a great job as a result. It's just so exciting. You've got a few little extra bumps there, and it soaks them up really well. If you're someone who's looking for a sporty little compact sports sedan like this, I don't think the ride's going to upset you. I think it's totally appropriate for the segment, and yeah, I'm sure the adaptive dampers would be a nice option to have, but even without them, this feels great. And even more potholes there, just skipped right over them, no problem. engine. But yeah, this thing is very competent feeling. And yes, it's not the full-blown 45, so some people might not, consider this as hardcore of an AMG or not even an AMG at all, but it really is. It really has that, special feeling to it, that excitement to it, and the great sound, the, real extra edge, and just, yeah, everything about this. I'm definitely into the CLA 45 a lot. This thing is a really fun little vehicle. I also love how loud this exhaust is. It's certainly louder than the S3 is, and I like that. I mean, again, you're buying a sports sedan, you want something loud and something exciting, and I love that it not only has the crackles and pops, but a nice loud tone as well. The S3 sounds good as well. I'm not trying to, downplay the S3 whatsoever. It's a great car, and one I happily daily drive as well. But this just, it has a little bit extra, in my opinion, and the sound, the sharpness, the little bit of extra lightness, it just all makes for a really great experience. Another thing that I think I'm feeling compared to the last generation CLA is the longer wheelbase. So it's only 1.1 inches longer for the wheelbase. So I mean, we're not talking about enormous changes, but I just feel like this does feel a little, obviously it's a little bit bigger in general, but I think that, it gives it a more planted and stable feeling than the last generation, which still felt great and still was very playful and fun. But I think this just, feels like it has a little more composure to it than the last one as a result. So we've established that the CLA 35 is an absolute blast to drive. A couple other things I do want to mention though about this vehicle. First off is, even though this one has less than 5,000 miles, there's already a couple little squeaks and rattles. There's a little squeak here on the passenger side front area of somewhere, and there's also, I hear something towards the back of the vehicle as well that's been squeaking off and on. And so, having the entry-level Mercedes, just note that it might not feel quite as solid as maybe some of the higher end stuff might feel. The interior of the CLA is actually a really nice place to be, and I think it's honestly one of the nicest interiors in its segment. Now, it is an entry-level Mercedes, so there are still some cheap filling buttons here and there, but it has more metal and more premium materials than I think most of the competition does. You have this metal on the doors here, and you have this cool ambient lighting that goes across the inside here, and even in the vents and everything. It really feels very high-end, and so it's just an exciting thing to look at, and just very visually interesting compared to some of the other stuff in this segment, like the Audi S3, for example, which is much more straightforward and simple, and some people prefer that, but to me, I think this is a little more exciting. And anyway, sitting down in these seats, you have these standard seats. You can get a sportier seat if you want to pay a bunch of extra money, but these ones actually have a good amount of support. Now, the thigh bolstering could certainly be higher. That is a little unimpressive, but other than that, I mean, you have the adjustable thigh support here, and here you still have memory seats, they're heated seats, and so overall pretty good seats. The steering wheel here, also, this one has the sports steering wheel, which is a few $100s extra, and it's wrapped in Alcantara, which I'm personally not a huge fan of. It usually doesn't wear very well, but it's a great steering wheel otherwise. I mean, an awesome 9-3 grip. I love all the metal on it again, and this one also does have these optional little controllers that you can add on for, again, a few $100s extra. Lots of options with these Mercedes, and so it's kind of cool, but kind of unnecessary as well, considering you have drive mode selectors here right by your knee, but still a cool little extra touch. And you have nice large paddle shifters that are made out of these chunks of metal as well that feel great, and so just an awesome steering wheel. The gauges are really nice. They're paired up. You have these twin 10-inch screens here, and for the gauges, it's just very customizable. I love how you can have all kinds of performance information there. You can have various different looks for those gauges, and just they do everything you want it to do, and they do it very well. And so I really like the way they set that up. You can also get an optional head-up display in these. This one does not have that, but that is another option if you want to get even more advanced with that. But coming over to the middle screen here, it also is a really nice improvement compared to past Mercedes. It's touchscreen, and it also still has this controller pad you can use as well if you're not into using the touchscreen. But it's also very easy to use. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and all the other basic stuff. But tuning through radio stations, doing all that kind of stuff is very easy. And I love how you have the performance pages, so you can go in there and see some extra information. And there's also themes, so you can set up your own custom themes, or have some of the preset ones here, and that'll change the ambient lighting automatically, and a bunch of other stuff. And so really cool you have all that. This also does have a bunch of voice commands, and when these first came out, people used to be constantly annoyed by the fact that it'll wake to the Mercedes, just like that. It's asking me Yeah, it's getting all confused. Okay. So I'm going to avoid saying the word Mercedes in this vehicle because every time I do, it's probably going to try and pop up. I got lucky that time it didn't. But anyway, the voice command thing has certainly been a sore spot. Aside from that, though, a really great infotainment system in my opinion. And then otherwise, you know, you have these vents and just a little row of toggles, and that's it. Storage space is also pretty decent here in this vehicle, considering how small it is. You have nice large pockets in the doors, another large space for a huge phone or something in there, and a power outlet, 2 cup holders, and also this center armrest, which is nicely padded and has a good amount of space, and also 2 USB-C jacks in it. You also see another USB-C jack by those cup holders as well. You also do have a Burmester stereo, which is an option. This one has that. That's another several $100 option you can add. The back seat in the CLA is definitely on the tight side. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have about an inch, maybe, you know, 1.5 inches of legroom to spare there. Kind of tight, and again, I'm not a tall guy. I don't have a long torso or anything, and I still have maybe 1 inch of headroom back there. It's certainly tight. I wouldn't put 4 people in this thing on a regular basis unless everyone's on the smaller side, but you know, it certainly does work. It's nice that it's a 4-door, but you know, you pay for that sloping roof line and the very low you know, shape of this vehicle. But those backseat passengers do have a few nice amenities. There's their own dedicated air vents. They also have a USB-C jack back there and pockets in those doors, as well as a full down center armrest with 2 cup holders built into it. And the trunk actually is a little bit bigger than you might be expecting. I think part of that is thanks to the fact that, you know, the back end is a little more flowing and a little longer than some of its competitors. So it's a pretty long space for a vehicle this small and pretty deep as well. And so honestly, the trunk is better than you might be expecting, and you know, makes this vehicle fairly practical as far as that goes. And then the other thing to mention is, you know, the basics as far as, you know, fuel economy, pricing, how it compares to its competition. So first off, fuel economy in these. So these are rated at 23 mpg in the city, 31 on the highway, and 27 mpg combined. And I'm not driving this vehicle very long, so I'm not able to do any kind of fuel economy testing myself, but that's what it's rated at. And you know, with these turbo engines, it really comes down to, you know, if you push them hard, you'll probably do worse fuel economy than that, but if you take it easy, you probably can overperform those numbers, especially on the highway. So other than that though, you know, the pricing of this. Now this one is used and it is for sale at Harrison Auto Sales, but CLAs, you know, they started, I think, for the CLA 35 around 46, and then they can max out well over 60. This one has most of the options on it. It's pretty well equipped aside from that adaptive suspension, so this one is certainly optioned up, you know, probably closer to that $60,000 mark. So obviously pricing will depend on, you know, if you're looking at used ones where, you know, you're looking at and what the deals are like, you know, right around your area. But you know, as far as new MSRP, you know, comparing this to the stuff it competes with directly, like the Audi S3 and, you know, basically like the Cadillac CT4V is the only other one really this competes closely with. And there's also the BMW M235i Grand Coupe, but I haven't driven one of those, so I can't really comment on that. But from what I've heard, that doesn't seem to be quite as good as this or the S3. But you know, so as far as S3 goes, you know, I think the S3 felt maybe a little bit more solid, but it also felt, you know, a little heavier as a result and a little less fun. So, you know, if it were my money between those two, I probably would pick this actually. It's also just, even though it does have a little bit of a, you know, tighter back seat, I think, than the S3 possibly, you know, I think that the back seat's still functional in this, and certainly, you know, I don't know, I just feel like I would take this over an F3 just for the exhaust, the sounds, and just the dual clutch and everything. I don't know, I just feel like it's a little bit of a more fun experience. Also, I think I'd take this over Cadillac CT4V. The Cadillac has a bit more power and it has a larger 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, and it feels great. And that also being rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but a rear-wheel drive based platform means that, you know, it feels a little more dynamic with its handling. And if you're someone who prefers rear-wheel drive based driving dynamics, I think that certainly is the better handler. This certainly handles very, very well. I think that even feels a little more agile than even this does. And again, it just comes down to whether you want a front biased all-wheel drive system or a rear biased all-wheel drive system or rear-wheel drive if you go for that on the CT4. And so, you know, I think the CT4 is really nice. Now, I don't think the interior has, you know, the same kind of quality materials you get here in this, but, you know, the CT4 also didn't have any kind of rattles or anything when I had it either. So, kind of, you know, I'd say a tie there as far as that stuff goes. And those, you know, you can get for, you know, very similar money to this. If you're also looking on the used market, Cadillac Cadillacs typically appreciate, you know, maybe a little bit quicker than the Mercedes does, so, you know, it might be a better deal again on the used market depending on, you know, where you're looking and all that. But a really great choice there with the Cadillac, and I think an often overlooked choice as well. It's certainly worth considering. But honestly, the last little competitor I want to mention is Mercedes' own CLA 45 AMG, because if, you know, you are someone who obviously wants extra performance and stuff, it really is going to come down to, you know, what your budget is and how many options you want, because like I said, the range of this thing is crazy, going from 46 for a base all the way up to 60 fully loaded. So for the CLA 45, you could potentially get a CLA 45 with less options, you know, for the same money as one of these with options on it. So if, you know, power and all that performance is, you know, more of a priority to you, certainly, you know, go for that maybe and skip out on some options. Then you'll have an even crazier vehicle that's even more special feeling for still, you know, around $60,000 or so. And at that price point, you're also getting up to like the Audi RS3, which is another very special, very exciting vehicle, which is, you know, pretty close in pricing to these as they are right now. But, you know, and the RS3 is another really, really special car, and I think that does feel a little more exciting and special than this. That has a torque vectoring rear diff that does all kinds of crazy tricks, and the sound out of that 5-cylinder. I think I would certainly take the RS3 over this. I'd have to try a CLA 45 to, you know, say for sure as far as that, because I haven't driven the new generation of the CLA 45. But anyway, I think this really has a strong niche for itself, and is certainly one of the best in its segment, and something, you know, I would certainly consider, because I think it is an absolute blast to drive this little thing. And if you are interested in this CLA 35 in particular, Harrison Auto Sales has it for sale as of the time of me filming this. You know, I don't know how long it's going to be there and be for sale, especially with this matte green wrap. It's a very cool look, and you know, it really stands out from the crowd. And so you can definitely go on their website. I'll have the link in the description to check it out. But anyway, huge thanks to them for providing me here with this vehicle. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to keep these videos coming. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.